Commander Hyon stood on the bridge of his ship, looking at the strange star system ahead. The signals had come from this place 3 months ago. Radio waves, digital transmissions, and something else that made his science team very excited. A new species had just discovered faster-than-light communication. "Sir, we're getting close to the third planet," said his communications officer. "The signals are stronger now." Hyon nodded. In his 40 years of service with the Galactic Council, he had done this many times. A new species would figure out how to send messages across space. The Council would send a ship. They would make contact, explain the rules, and offer protection. Most species were grateful. Some were scared. All of them needed help to survive. In the dangerous galaxy. "What do we know about them?" Hyon asked. "They call themselves humans," the science officer replied. "They live on a planet they call Earth. Population is around 8 billion. They seem to have one government that speaks for everyone." "Good. That makes things easier." Hyon had dealt with species that had hundreds of different governments. Those first meetings could take years. The ship moved closer to the human world. Hyon could see it now on the main screen, blue and green with white clouds. It looked peaceful and beautiful, perfect for a species that would need the Council's help. "Sir, we're getting a message," the communications officer said, looking confused. "They're speaking to us." "What?" Hyon was surprised. Most species hid when they saw alien ships. "Put it through." A voice came through the speakers. It spoke in perfect Council standard, the language used by all civilized species. "Welcome to our solar system. I am Jiwon Kim representing Earth. We've been waiting for you." Hyon felt a chill run down his spine. How did they know Council standard? How did they know anyone was coming? "This is Commander Hyon of the Galactic Council ship Peaceful Dawn. We received your signals and came to make contact." "We know," Jiwon replied calmly. "We've been listening to your communications for quite some time. Would you like to meet on our moon? We have a facility ready." The bridge crew looked at each other with worried faces. New species were supposed to be confused and scared. They weren't supposed to have facilities ready for alien visitors. "How long have you been listening?" Hyon asked. "About 60 years, Jiwon said. "We've learned a lot about the galaxy in that time." Hyon's hands began to shake. 60 years meant these humans had been watching and learning since before they had faster-than-light communication. That should have been impossible. "We'll meet you on your moon," Hyon said finally. 2 hours later, Hyon and his team stood in an airlock on the human moon. The facility around them was impressive. Clean white walls, artificial gravity, and air that smelled fresh. The humans had built all of this without any help. The door opened, and 3 humans walked in. Hyon had seen pictures, but meeting them in person was different. They looked similar to several species in the galaxy, but something felt wrong. They moved. Too smoothly, too carefully. Their eyes never stopped watching. "Welcome," said the woman in front. She was smaller than Hyon, with dark hair and kind eyes. "I'm Jiwon Kim. This is Donghyun Park, our military advisor, and Minji Lee, our science specialist." Hyon looked at Donghyun. The human was tall and strong, but he stood perfectly still. His eyes saw everything. This was a soldier, and a very good one. "I'm Commander Hyon. This is my team." He introduced his officers. "We're here to help your species join the galactic community." "That's very kind," Minji said. Her voice was calm, but Hyon noticed she was studying his team just as carefully as they were studying her. We have many questions. They sat around a table in what the humans called a conference room. Hyun began his standard speech about the Galactic Council, the rules that kept peace between species, and the protection they offered. Protection from what? Minji asked quietly. Hyun paused. Most species asked about trade or technology. They wanted to know about other worlds and alien cultures. None of them asked about threats first. There are dangerous things in the galaxy, Hyun said carefully. Pirates, hostile species, natural disasters. The Council helps keep everyone safe. What about the signals from the dark zones? Ji-won asked. The ones that stop suddenly? Hyun felt cold again. The dark zones were classified information, entire systems that went silent without warning. The Council told new species about those threats only after they had been members for years. How do you know about those? He asked. We listen, Dong-yun said simply. We watch. We learn. When whole solar systems stop sending signals, we notice. And when Council ships change course to avoid certain areas, we map those areas, Minji added. We've been building a picture of the threats out there. Hyun realized this first contact was not going the way it usually did. These humans weren't looking for protection. They were looking for information about enemies. Why haven't you asked about our technology? He asked. Or our trade agreements? Most species want to know how to improve their lives. Our lives are fine, Ji-won said. We can take care of ourselves, but we want to know about the things that might try to hurt others. Others? Hyun asked. Innocent species? Peaceful worlds? People who can't protect themselves? Dong-yun leaned forward. We've been listening to distress calls for decades. Species calling for help that never comes. We want to know why. Hyun looked at his team. They all had the same worried expression. These humans weren't asking to join the galactic community for safety or profit. They were asking because they wanted to protect people they had never met. The galaxy is more dangerous than your people know, Hyun said slowly. There are threats that could destroy entire worlds, things that have been fighting us for centuries. Good, Minji said and smiled. Then you need us. Need you? Hyun was confused. We're very good at dealing with dangerous things, Ji-won explained. Our world taught us how. We've had a lot of practice. Hyun looked around the room again. The facility was impressive, but now he noticed other things. The walls were thicker than they needed to be. The doors could seal in seconds. Everything was built like a fortress, not a meeting place. What kind of world did you come from? He asked quietly. The three humans looked at each other. Dong-yun smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. The kind that makes species like us, he said. Hyun realized that the Galactic Council hadn't found a new member species that needed protection. They had found something else entirely, something that might be more dangerous than the threats hiding in the dark zones, and these humans were offering to help. The meeting had moved to Earth 3 days later. Commander Hyun sat in what the humans called the United Nations building, feeling more uncomfortable with each passing hour. Around the large table sat representatives from the Galactic Council and several human experts. Seokjin Han stood at the front of the room with a calm smile. He was a human historian, here to explain his species' background. Hyun expected a simple story about peaceful evolution and gradual progress. That's what every species told during first contact. Our planet is what we call a death world, Seokjin began cheerfully. The alien representatives shifted in their seats. Death worlds were legendary, planets so hostile that life barely survived. No intelligent species had ever evolved on one. Sorry, said Council Member Vex, a tall blue alien with 4 arms. Did you say Death World? Yes, Seok-Jin nodded. Earth has tried to kill us since we first appeared. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, and diseases that wiped out most of our population multiple times. Yuna Choi, the human biologist, stood up next. She was small and looked harmless, but her words made the aliens lean back in fear. We've survived 5 major extinction events, Yuna said, showing pictures on a large screen. Asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, ice ages, and climate changes that would have killed any other species. But we didn't just survive. We adapted. The pictures showed human evolution over millions of years. The aliens watched in growing horror as they saw how humans had changed to survive in impossible conditions. Our planet has predators designed to hunt and kill, Yuna continued. Big cats with teeth like knives, bears that weigh as much as small vehicles, snakes with poison that can stop a heart in minutes, sharks that can bite through metal. How? Did you survive? Whispered Council Member Zara, her tentacles shaking with fear. We became better predators, said Kyung-ho Lim, speaking for the first time. Everyone turned to look at him. Kyung-ho was old, with gray hair and scars on his hands. He had been introduced as a veteran soldier, but now the aliens realized what that really meant. We learned to hunt in groups, Kyung-ho said quietly. We made weapons from rocks and sticks. We discovered fire and used it as a tool. We tracked animals for days across frozen wastelands and burning deserts. But you're civilized now, Vex said hopefully. You must have moved past such violent beginnings. Kyung-ho's laugh made the aliens flinch. We domesticated wolves to help us hunt. We turned them into dogs that would die to protect our children. We took wild plants and changed them into food. We captured and tamed animals that could kill us. We also tamed ourselves, Nara Song added gently. She was a small woman, with kind eyes, the human psychologist. We learned to work together against threats bigger than any individual. Please explain, Hyun said, though he was afraid of the answer. Humans will sacrifice themselves for abstract ideas, Nara explained. Honor, justice, protecting the innocent. We'll die for people we've never met if we think it's right. That's impossible, Zara said. No species does that. Survival instinct prevents it. We overrode our survival instinct, Nara said simply. We had to. On our world, the only way to survive was to make sure the group survived, even if individuals didn't. Seok-Jin returned to the front. Would you like to hear about our wars? Wars? Vex's voice cracked. We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years, Seok-Jin said proudly. Not for territory or resources, but for ideas, religion, freedom, the right to live differently. We've built weapons that could destroy our entire planet. But you stopped, Hyun said desperately. You have peace now. We have peace because we choose to have peace, Seok-Jin corrected. Every day, every human chooses not to use the weapons we've built. We could end our civilization tomorrow, but we don't because we've learned to be better. Yuna showed new pictures. Cities destroyed by war, then rebuilt. Forests cut down, then replanted. Oceans polluted, then cleaned. We've nearly destroyed our world 3 times, she said. Each time we pulled back and fixed what we broke. We learned that our real enemy wasn't each other. It was the problems we all faced together. Climate change, disease, poverty, ignorance, Nara listed. We're still fighting these battles, but now we fight them together. Kyung-ho stood up slowly. You want to know what makes humans special? We look at impossible odds and think, how do we win? We don't run from fights. We figure out how to turn them into victories. But surely you must be afraid of something, Zara pleaded. The humans looked at each other. Ji-won Kim, who had been quiet during the presentation, finally spoke. We're afraid of failing to protect others, she said. We're afraid of not being strong enough when someone needs help. We're afraid of good people dying because we weren't there. That's why we want to join the Galactic Council, Dong-Hyun Park added. Not for protection or trade. We want to help. Commander Hyon felt dizzy. Everything the Council knew about intelligent life was wrong. Species evolved on peaceful worlds. They developed technology slowly and carefully. They avoided conflict and sought harmony. But humans had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. They had turned conflict into an art form. They had built weapons of impossible destruction, then chosen not to use them. They had learned to sacrifice themselves for strangers. What do you want from the galaxy? Hyon asked weakly. We want to know who needs help, Minji Lee answered. We want to know where the threats are. We want to know who's causing the distress calls we've been hearing. And then? Hyon asked, though he already knew the answer. Seokjin smiled, and, for the first time, it looked dangerous. Then we'll do what humans do best. We'll solve the problem. The room fell silent. The alien representatives stared at these strange, peaceful-looking creatures who had just explained how they had survived everything their world could throw at them, turned themselves into perfect predators, then chosen to become protectors. Instead, Hyon realized that the Galactic Council had made first contact with something unprecedented, not a species seeking protection, but a species that had spent millions of years learning how to protect others. The humans weren't asking to join galactic civilization. They were offering to defend it. There are threats you don't know about, Hyon said finally. Things that have been attacking the outer worlds. Things we've been fighting for centuries without success. Good, Dong-Hyun said simply. We like challenges. Hyon looked around the room at his fellow council members. They all had the same expression of shock and growing hope. Maybe, after all these years of losing ground to the darkness between stars, the galaxy had finally found its guardians. 2 weeks after the humans had explained their history, Commander Hyon stood in the Council's main war room. The decision had been made at the highest levels. If these humans truly wanted to help, they would be told about the Void Swarm. Hyon watched as the human delegation entered the secure chamber. Admiral Tae-hyun-ko led the group wearing a simple blue uniform. Behind him walked Soo-young Park, a young engineer who looked like she should be in school, not a military briefing. Jin-woo Shin carried data tablets and had the focused look of someone who solved problems for a living. Captain Chae-young-yu brought up the rear, her eyes already scanning the room for exits and potential threats. Thank you for coming, Hyon said. What we're about to show you is classified at the highest levels. Only Council military commanders and senior researchers know these details. We understand, Admiral Tae-hyun replied. Show us. Hyon activated the holographic display. A three-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared, with thousands of points of light representing star systems. But around the edges, large dark areas showed where the lights had gone out. This is the Void Swarm, Hyon said quietly. We first encountered them 300 years ago. They come from outside our galaxy, moving in from dark space. They consume everything. Planets, stars, entire solar systems. The humans studied the map in silence. Hyun had shown this to other species before. Usually they asked about evacuation plans or hiding places. The humans asked different questions. "What's their technology level?" Soo-young asked, leaning forward to examine the display. "Advanced beyond our understanding," Hyun replied. "They convert matter into energy, energy into ships, ships into more swarm. They grow stronger with every system they consume." "How fast do they move?" Jinwoo asked, making notes on his tablet. "They can cross a star system in days. Their ships appear to ignore physics as we understand it." "What about their tactics?" Admiral Tae-hyun asked. Hyun paused. No species had ever asked about swarm tactics before. They overwhelm defenses with numbers. Millions of small craft that act as one organism. When we destroy 1,000, 10,000 more appear. Captain Chae-young raised her hand. "Have you ever captured any of their technology?" "A few pieces," Hyun admitted. "Our best scientists have studied them for decades. We can barely understand how they work, much less copy them." "Can we see those pieces?" Soo-young asked excitedly. Hyun looked at the other council members. This was not how these briefings usually went. Other species asked about safety measures and evacuation routes. These humans wanted to study the enemy. "There's more you need to know," Hyun continued. "The swarm doesn't just destroy worlds. It learns from them. Every species it consumes adds to its knowledge. It's getting smarter and more dangerous." "How many species have they consumed?" Jinwoo asked. 47 intelligent species," Hyun said sadly. "Billions of lives lost. Hundreds of worlds turned into empty space." The room fell silent. The humans looked at the map, calculating something in their heads. "What's your current strategy?" Admiral Tae-hyun asked. "Strategic withdrawal," replied Council Military Commander Vex. "We evacuate threatened systems and fall back to more defensible positions. We've managed to slow their advance." "For how long?" Chae-young asked. "At current rates, they'll reach the core worlds in 200 years, Vex admitted. "So you're losing," Jinwoo said. It wasn't a question. "We're buying time," Vex said defensively, "hoping to find a weakness or develop new weapons." "Has that strategy worked?" Soo-young asked bluntly. "No," Hyun said quietly. "We lose ground every year. The swarm grows stronger while we grow weaker." The humans exchanged looks. Admiral Tae-hyun stepped forward. "We'd like to volunteer for a reconnaissance mission," he said. The council members stared at him in shock. "Volunteer for what?" Vex stammered. "Send us to the front lines," Tae-hyun explained. "We want to see this swarm in action, study their ships, their tactics, their weaknesses." "That's suicide," Hyun said. "We don't send ships into swarm territory. They don't come back." "We'll come back," Chae-young said confidently. "How can you be sure?" Vex asked. "Because we're very good at not dying," she replied. Soo-young was already studying the technical readouts. "Their ships use some kind of gravity manipulation for propulsion, and their weapons appear to disrupt atomic bonds at a distance." "Interesting." "Interesting?" Hyun couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Those weapons can destroy a battleship in seconds." "Everything can be understood," Soo-young said calmly. "Everything that can be understood can be countered." Jinwoo looked up from his calculations. "Based on these numbers, you've been fighting a defensive war for 3 centuries. Has anyone tried going on the offensive?" "Offensive?" Vex laughed bitterly. "Against the swarm? They outnumber us 1,000,000 to 1. "Numbers don't always matter," Admiral Tae-hyun said. "What matters is how you use what you have. This is madness." Vex said. You've just learned about the greatest threat in galactic history, and you want to attack it? We want to understand it, Taehyun corrected. We want to find its weaknesses. We want to learn how to beat it. And if there are no weaknesses? Hyun asked. The humans looked at each other again. This time they smiled. Then we'll make some, Chae-young said. 3 days later, Captain Chae-young-yu stood on the bridge of her ship, the Soul's Pride, as it approached the edge of swarm territory. The Council had given them a small, fast vessel and wished them luck. Most Council members thought they would never see the humans again. Contact, her sensor operator called out. Multiple swarm signatures approaching. How many? Chae-young asked. 50. No. 200. Contacts multiplying rapidly. Chae-young smiled. Perfect. Let's see what they can do. The swarm ships appeared on the screen, dark, twisted things that hurt to look at. They moved in perfect coordination, like fish in a school or birds in a flock. They're trying to surround us, the tactical officer reported. Let them, Chae-young said. We're not here to fight. We're here to learn. The Soul's Pride danced between the swarm ships, recording everything. Their movements, their weapons, their communication patterns. The humans watched and learned, while the aliens tried to destroy them. Getting some interesting readings, Soo-young reported from the engineering station. Their ships aren't as coordinated as they look. There's a delay in their responses. Command structure? Jinwoo asked. Hierarchy-based. Kill the right ship and the others get confused. Chae-young nodded. Mark the command vessels. We'll need that information later. Later? The tactical officer asked. When we come back with the fleet, Chae-young said simply. The Soul's Pride broke free of the swarm formation and jumped to safety. Behind them, the dark ships regrouped and continued their slow advance toward civilized space. But now, for the first time in 300 years, someone had survived contact with the swarm and learned their secrets. The humans were coming back, and next time, they wouldn't be running. The Galactic Council war room buzzed with nervous energy. 3 months had passed since the humans returned from their reconnaissance mission. Now they were back with plans that made veteran military commanders question their sanity. Admiral Tae-hyun stood before the holographic display, pointing to positions in space that should have been suicide to approach. We'll hit them here, here, and here simultaneously. Fast strikes, maximum damage, then withdraw before they can coordinate a response. Those are swarm staging areas, Commander Vex protested. They're defended by thousands of ships. Exactly, Tae-hyun replied calmly. Which is why they won't. Expect an attack. Min-ho Kang stepped forward. He was a Special Forces operative, trained for impossible missions. His calm demeanor made the alien officers uncomfortable. My teams will board the command vessels during the confusion. We'll plant charges and extract data. Board swarm ships? Hyun felt dizzy. No one has ever survived that. No one has ever tried, Min-ho corrected. The swarm doesn't expect enemies. Inside their ships, they have no internal defenses. At the technical station, Ji-yeon Lim worked frantically on her computer. The young woman looked harmless, but she was humanity's best cyber warfare specialist. I've analyzed the data from their reconnaissance. The swarm uses a quantum communication network. If we can inject the right virus, we can turn their own systems against them. You want to hack the swarm? Vex asked incredulously. I want to make them hack themselves, Ji-yeon said with a grin. Sang-woo Han, the human medic, stood quietly in the corner. He had been studying swarm physiology from the samples they had recovered. The biological components of their technology show interesting weaknesses. They're vulnerable to certain electromagnetic frequencies. You found a way to hurt them? Hyan asked hopefully. I found a way to confuse them, Sang-woo replied. Disrupt their neural networks. Make them unable to coordinate. It won't destroy them, but it will give us an advantage. The most surprising addition to the human team was Yoonji Park, a civilian engineer who had volunteered when she learned about the threat to innocent worlds. She had no military training, but her ideas were revolutionary. We don't need to destroy every swarm ship, she explained. We just need to break their supply lines, cut off their ability to convert matter into new vessels. How? Vex asked. We turn their own consumption against them, Yoonji said, showing diagrams of modified asteroids. We seed their path with materials that will poison their conversion process, make them sick from the inside. Admiral Tae-hyun surveyed the room. Questions? This plan is insane, Vex said flatly. You're asking us to attack the most dangerous force in the galaxy with strategies that have never been tested. All strategies are untested until you use them, Tae-hyun replied. What if you're wrong? Hyun asked. What if these tactics don't work? Then we'll try something else, Minho said simply. We'll keep trying until something does work. And if you all die in the process? Vex demanded. The humans looked at each other. Chae-young-yu, who had led the reconnaissance mission, spoke for them all. Then other humans will continue the mission. We don't give up just because something is difficult. 2 weeks later, the first Joint Human Council fleet jumped into swarm territory. The alien crews were terrified. The humans were excited. Swarm contacts detected, the sensor operator reported. Massive formation, just as predicted. Perfect, Admiral Tae-hyun said. Begin Operation Last Stand. The human ships moved with precision that amazed their alien allies. Instead of the careful, defensive formations the Council preferred, they struck like lightning, fast, brutal, and completely unexpected. Minho's boarding teams launched in small craft that looked like debris. The swarm ships didn't even notice them until it was too late. Within minutes, swarm command vessels were exploding from the inside. Geons. Virus spread through the swarm network like wildfire. Suddenly, entire formations of enemy ships were attacking each other, their coordination destroyed by their own communication systems. Sang-woo's electromagnetic weapons disrupted swarm biology on a massive scale. Ships that had moved with perfect unity now drifted helplessly, their crews unable to think clearly. Yoonji's poisoned asteroids did exactly what she had predicted. Swarm ships that tried to consume them found their conversion processes backfiring, creating toxic compounds that damaged their own systems. But the most shocking thing for the Council forces was watching ordinary humans rise to the challenge. Yoonji Park, a civilian with no combat training, coordinated supply lines under enemy fire with calm efficiency. Sang-woo Han treated wounded aliens and humans alike, working miracles with medical techniques that seemed impossible. Jian Lim fought a cyber war against an enemy that had consumed dozens of advanced civilizations and won. How are they doing this? Commander Vex asked as he watched human ships dance through swarm formations like they were playing a game. They're doing what they were made to do, Hyan replied quietly. Survive impossible odds and protect others. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, the swarm formation had been completely destroyed. For the first time in 300 years, the galactic forces had won a major victory against the Void Swarm. But more importantly, they had proven something that changed everything. The swarm could be beaten. In the aftermath, as rescue ships, Collected survivors and salvage teams studied wreckage. Alien crews worked alongside humans with new respect. They had seen something unprecedented, a species that didn't just fight to survive, but fought to protect others. "What's next?" Hyun asked Admiral Tai Hyun as they surveyed the battlefield. "Next, we teach everyone else how to fight like humans," Taehyun replied. "We share our tactics, our strategies, our weapons. We turn this galaxy full of survivors into a galaxy full of protectors." "And then?" Hyun asked. Taehyun smiled, and for the first time since meeting humans, Hyun found that smile comforting rather than terrifying. "Then we take the fight to them. We stop running and start hunting. We show the swarm what happens when they threaten our galaxy." Across the fleet, human and alien crews worked together, repairing damage and preparing for the next battle. They had learned something important. When humans said they wanted to help, they meant it. When they said they would protect others, they did it. The galaxy had found its guardians, and the guardians were ready for war. The Void Swarm had spent 3 centuries consuming everything in its path. Now it was about to learn what it meant to be hunted by a species that had turned survival into an art form. The tide of war was turning, and humanity was leading the charge. 1 year after the first human victory against the Void Swarm, the galaxy was a different place. The council chambers, once filled with fear and desperate defense plans, now buzzed with hope and offensive strategies. Ji-hoon Kim stood at the center of the Great Assembly, addressing representatives from 43 different species. As humanity's chief diplomat, he had spent months building alliances and teaching other species the human way of thinking. "The swarm's main hive has been located," Ji-hoon announced, causing excited murmurs throughout the chamber. "Our combined fleets are ready for the final assault." In the crowd, alien faces showed emotions that had been rare for centuries: hope, determination, and confidence. The humans had done more than win battles. They had changed how the galaxy thought about survival. "I still can't believe it worked," whispered Ambassador Yala, a graceful being whose species had been refugees for 50 years. "Your people actually did it." Ji-hoon smiled. "We had help. Everyone contributed to this victory." It was true. The past year had seen the most remarkable cooperation in galactic history. Species that had been enemies for generations now worked together, united by the human example of protecting others before protecting themselves. Soyeon Cho had led the effort to heal worlds damaged by the swarm. As humanity's top terraforming specialist, she had developed techniques that turned dead planets back into homes. She stood now with representatives from a dozen species, all working together to restore their shattered worlds. "The Kepler system is habitable again," Soyeon reported to the assembly. "The Therex people can return home within 6 months." The Therex delegation wept with joy. Their world had been consumed by the swarm 2 decades ago. They had given up hope of ever returning home. "How did you do it?" asked Elder Thane, the Therex leader. "We learned from our own mistakes," Soyeon replied. "Humans have nearly destroyed our world several times. We know how to fix what's been broken." In another section of the assembly, Woojin Park worked with young beings from dozens of species. As Earth's cultural ambassador, he had established exchange programs that brought alien children to human schools and human children to alien worlds. "The best part," Woojin told a group of young aliens, "is watching human kids play with alien kids. They don't see differences. They just see friends." A small Zenthari child, whose species had been known for their isolation and distrust of others, raised a tentacle. "Teacher Woojin, why do humans always want to help? Wu Jin knelt down to the child's level. Because when you help others, everyone becomes stronger. When everyone is stronger, everyone is safer. The child's large eyes blinked in understanding. So helping others helps us too? Now you're thinking like a human, Wu Jin said with a grin. At the edges of the assembly, Heian Li reviewed star charts with exploration teams from multiple species. As humanity's lead scout, she had been mapping the galaxy beyond the swarm's former territory, looking for new worlds and new challenges. There are entire sectors we've never explored, Heian explained to her mixed species team. The swarm kept us all locked in this small part of the galaxy. Now we can see what's really out there. Aren't you afraid of what we might find? Asked Captain Zex, a veteran warrior from a militaristic species. We're excited about what we might find, Heian corrected. New worlds, new species, new friends. Maybe new threats too, but we'll handle those when we find them. Together? Zex asked. Always together, Heian replied firmly. As the assembly continued, Commander Heian watched from the observer's gallery. The alien who had first met humanity now served as their liaison to the Council's military forces. He had seen the galaxy transform under human influence. Remarkable, said Ambassador Vex, joining him at the railing. A year ago, we were a galaxy of survivors, each species hiding and hoping the swarm wouldn't find them. Now look at us. Below them, the assembly voted unanimously to approve the final assault on the swarm hive. Not a single species voted against. The plan despite the risks. What changed? Vex asked. The humans showed us something we had forgotten, Jan replied. That survival isn't enough. That protecting yourself isn't enough. That real strength comes from protecting others. The final vote was called. Ji-hoon stood once more before the assembly. By unanimous decision, Operation Galaxy's End is approved, he announced. Combined fleets from all member species will assault the swarm hive in 72 hours. The chamber erupted in cheers. Species that had been enemies cheered for each other. Refugees cheered for the hope of returning home. Children cheered for a future without fear. But the loudest cheers came when Ji-hoon made an unexpected announcement. The Galactic Council has voted to restructure our organization, he said. No longer will we be a council of species seeking protection. We will be a council of guardians protecting the galaxy together. He paused, looking around the chamber at faces from dozens of worlds. And by unanimous vote, humanity has been designated as the galaxy's official guardian species, not to rule over others, but to teach others how to guard themselves. The response was deafening. Even species that had been skeptical of humans now cheered the decision. 3 days later, the largest fleet in galactic history surrounded the swarm hive. Humans and aliens worked side by side on every ship, combining their strengths and covering each other's weaknesses. All ships report ready, Admiral Tae-hyun announced from the flagship. This is it, Commander Hyun said. 300 years of war, ended today. Not ended, Tae-hyun corrected. Won. There's a difference. The battle was brief but decisive. The combined fleet, using human tactics and alien technology, overwhelmed the swarm in hours. When the hive finally exploded, taking the last of the void swarm with it, the galaxy was free. In the weeks that followed, as fleets returned home and celebrations filled every world, the real work began. Worlds were rebuilt, species relocated, to new homes, and children born who would never know the fear of the swarm. Ji-hoon stood in the council chambers, now redesigned to represent a galaxy of protectors rather than survivors. Through the windows, he could see ships from 43 different species working together in orbit, their crews learning from each other. "What happens now?" asked Ambassador Yala, joining him at the window. "Now we explore," Ji-hoon replied. "We find new worlds, new species, new challenges. We build a galaxy where everyone protects everyone else. And if we find new threats?" Ji-hoon smiled, and it was a smile that would have been familiar to any human. Confident, determined, and ready for anything. "Then we'll do what Guardians do. We'll face them together." Outside the window, human and alien children played together in the orbital gardens, their laughter echoing through the corridors. They were the first generation in 3 centuries to grow up without fear, the first to learn that the galaxy was a place of wonder rather than terror. The humans had kept their promise. They had found a galaxy of survivors and turned it into a galaxy of guardians. They had taken species that hid from threats and taught them to face threats together. Most importantly, they had shown the galaxy that survival wasn't enough. That true strength came not from protecting yourself, but from protecting others. The galaxy was safe, and it would stay safe, because now everyone was a guardian. The age of fear was over. The age of protection had begun. And leading the way, as they always had, were the strange, wonderful, impossible humans from the death world called Earth, a species that had learned to turn survival into an art form and chose to use that art to protect everyone else. The galaxy had found its guardians, and the guardians would never stop watching,